Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross and I'm the founder at designcuts.com, and this week I'm joined by my fellow Brit and hand lettering expert Ian Barnard and the incredibly talented South African illustrator Lisa Glanz. This week we're talking about the best ways to spend money in order to save time. Time is our greatest asset, so when should we be willing to invest in the tools, platforms and people we need to save time versus choosing to save our money? Without further ado, let's get into the show. Whoop whoop. Hey guys.
Woo woo! Hey Tom, tell us how you're feeling.
Does that answer your question? Yeah, for everyone listening at home and hopefully not watching at home, obviously we've got the YouTube version of this show. If you're watching that, please stop watching because I look so terrible today and go listen to us instead. I think I've got a chest infection or something, so I've been coughing all kinds of stuff up for most of today. So yeah,
Sounds good.
it's if I'm sounding a little bit croaky, that's why. But to give a bit of background, I know today we're talking about spending money, saving time. But I will put out my own public service announcement because these guys were quite rightly just nagging me in terms of if you're out there and you're overworking and you're not getting enough sleep and you're burning out, please take a step back and look after yourself because we're all guilty of it. Lisa's just gone through something similar. This actually stems from, I don't know how many of the listeners would have seen me on The Future. If you don't know The Future, it's spelled without the E on the end. Future. I don't know. I basically jumped on with those guys at the weekend and it was really good fun and it got a lot of positive feedback, but it was also very late at night. So I think it finished at 11 or half 11 at night. And then because it went out live and got hundreds of live comments, which you can't read while you're a guest on it, obviously I then had to rewatch the entire thing to check no one was saying nasty things because I'm precious like that. And also I drank a load of caffeine before jumping on to try and have like decent energy at that time of night, which meant when I was all said and done, zero sleep, lying in bed, eyes wide awake like some kind of cartoon. And then I forgot I had a business call first thing on Saturday.
Ouch.
So I think all of that combined with just being quite a busy man has compounded in me sounding like this and feeling like death, which is not ideal.
Well, you're doing very well for a man. Sorry to all you men out there.
Yeah, I mean, we do have it hard, don't we? It's just a fact of life.
You don't handle being ill very well. But you are doing brilliantly, Tom.
No, I'm going to go lie down in a dark room and weep when we've done recording. But yeah, if anyone out there is interested in making digital products, go on YouTube and search for The Future, Tom Ross. That was my whole presentation. The reason it's relevant for these guys is because it featured their products very extensively, and it basically gives all the insight I could muster into why some products sell better than others. Gave a bit of a framework for how to come up with winning products. It talked about how to make them look super nice, how to present them, how to put them together. And it's actually something we're going to be pushing out in a slightly different format to all the designers that we work with, being like, essentially do it as well as Ian and Lisa, because I think you guys really set the bar. So yeah,
thank you, Tom.
If you're on the fence about creating digital products, go check out The Future on YouTube, and I hope you enjoy it. But anyway, shall we dive into today's topic?
Yeah.
Okay, if I could actually, I'm just going to lie down if you guys can do the talking for the next 45 minutes.
Each other.
Oh, shame, Tom.
But yeah, today we're talking all about how and when, I guess, to spend money in order to save time. And I think it's important to start with time because for anyone, including designers, it really is our greatest asset. It's something we can't get back once we've spent it. And generally we could all use more of it. And so when it evaporates into silly things, which we're going to get into in this episode, it's not only a huge waste, but it's normally quite avoidable. And one of the ways to avoid it is often getting your wallet out and investing in various things. And obviously you don't want to be frivolous with your money. We're not doing this episode to be like, you need to spend more. But I think it can be helpful to look at what stuff you should perhaps be investing your money into, because you're actually going to get a net benefit from it.
Yeah.
So take it away, guys. What do you think?
With the whole net benefit thing, I think not 100% is it the time, because actually if someone, for instance, say, here's one thing, say you didn't want to go down the Adobe route in terms of going through their subscription. It's expensive, it's $50 per month. When you're just starting out as a freelancer, that's quite a lot of money per month, per year. And you can think, actually, well, maybe I could just spend that same amount of money just 1 month just buying like Affinity Designer. But then, you could come up with things like you might not be able to open, like the client sends you an Illustrator document, and I can't remember if you can open them in Affinity, but say
you can, but there are limitations.
But say that you can't, and you need Illustrator, then there's that part of there's no time thing, I suppose. There's just that part of your job that you can't do. So there's some of these things which actually, if you invest in it, you'll get a return in terms of you'll actually be able to take on that job or open that file or be able to use that application.
Yeah. By the way, this episode is not sponsored by Affinity.
Or Adobe.
No. So it's looking at, in terms of when you've got a variety of options, we're saying that the Mac stuff is like not getting any cheaper. So PCs are a lot more better value for money in terms of what you get for your, bang for your buck. But I suppose there's, I'm trying to think around, okay, let's start by thinking of any experience where you've invested in something and it has paid off. I'm investing in something that hasn't paid off.
Yeah, I think a good framework for this is work out your hourly rate. And even if you charge a day rate or a flat rate for projects, you can generally boil down and disseminate that down to some kind of hourly rate. So let's say you charge $50 an hour for your design services, for example. If you pay for something and spend $50 on it and it saves you 2 hours of time, then it's paid for itself, is the basic principle. But people are still quite resistant to do that because it's an uncomfortable thing to spend our personal money, right? We don't generally like to do that. And so I think we get emotional about it instead of logical. And often it's much greater returns than that. So that obviously gives you a profit in terms of time. But often it'll be you spend $50 and you save 2 hours a week or something like that. So actually it's monumental. If you're saving hundreds of hours a year, that's a huge value you can put on those hours if that was chargeable work. And so by reallocating that into better things, to grow your creative business, to attract more clients, to do whatever you want to do, the results are massive. But I think as humans, we find it hard to get past but I don't want to spend $50 on that. That's expensive,
Yeah, I think it's important to do a audit, I guess, on all the core things that are important in your job. For example, if you use the internet a lot, I think, well, in our country, internet is quite expensive and it's slow. So I was resistant for a long time to keep, upping my speed because it costs a lot of money. But at the same time, I'd be losing not only a lot of hair as I'm pulling out my hair waiting for stuff to upload, I'd also be losing time because I'm sitting there literally waiting for stuff to upload or save or download or whatever. Yeah. So it just didn't make sense to not go the faster route, even though it is an expensive part of my business. But I have to do it. It's like a no-brainer.
And there's probably stuff on the periphery too, so you might not be able to have done this show and stream live video if you had really bad internet.
Exactly. There's a whole bunch of benefits that you don't even realize are beneficial, and I think it's difficult. I think that's where we get confused, or because it's not tangible. You can't really sit down and okay, well, I spend so much and I can see the results of it. It's all about your productivity throughout the day and how it impacts you. And I think a lot of designers make the mistake of, okay, well, I need. I'm not going to buy that because it's too expensive. But I think there's some stuff that you can compromise. You can go with kind of like the generic, but then there's some stuff that you really, really shouldn't, I think. And I think
like what, Lisa? Well, read myself a list.
Okay, so it's a personal. I think it's not a personal thing, but it's specific to what I do. But I couldn't live without Adobe subscription. It would be. I wouldn't be able to do my job. Okay, so there's that. So for me to pay what I pay in South African rand for $1 subscription, it's a huge chunk, but it's something that I have to do. Otherwise, I can't earn a living. So that is a no-brainer. Then the fastest internet, I need to buy it. I need to buy a decent Mac, because if you have like a really slow computer, then again you're spending so much time waiting for the thing to process. And then I think Ian's also had this debate in his head about the iPad Pro. When it first came out, I was like, there is no chance that I can spend so much money on a mobile device. It just seems insane. But I kind of weighed up the pros and cons, and I went for it. And now I can't do my job without it. It's insane. It's weird how that works out. But
so I bet you see a huge return on that in terms of money.
Massive. Like, Cliff keeps saying to me, you were so worried when you bought it, and now look at you. It's like stuck to your hand. But it's just weird how you, it's good to have those debates, but you also need to be smart about being careful. I mean, you don't want to be so careful that you end up being left behind in your own ability.
So I guess what you're saying I'm going to jump in before you do, Ian, with the builder metaphor. we like to get it then. But imagine Ian's best buddy in the world, Mr. Builder. It wouldn't make sense for him to go and buy a Lamborghini to drive between building jobs.
No.
But it would make sense for him to upgrade from like a rusted saw and horrible tools that kept falling apart or being inefficient for his job to get like some shiny new tools, for example. So there are things which are very much luxuries, or they're bought for the wrong reason to try and look flash. Look at me, I've got the new iWatch or whatever.
Yes.
But when it's really deeply connected to what you're doing as your trade, then I think it can get more tangible in terms of like, I can see this has really paid for itself pretty quickly.
Oh yeah.
I think it's because when you're a freelancer, and I know a lot of people are freelancers who watch this, that you're, there's less of a distinction between you and the business. You are the business. And so, like you were saying earlier, it's quite a personal thing to spend the money, because there's no, I find it hard to see the money that's the business and the money that's what I've earned. It's one and the same sort of thing, really. No one else has any decisions over it. And so, buying something is something, it feels that it's just coming out of your own pocket. Like you were buying, a new mobile phone. So me buying an iPad feels like buying a new iPhone or something like that.
Ian, just quickly, look behind you. You're sitting in the ultimate investment.
Yeah, I suppose. The thing is, I suppose with this.
So for everyone listening, Ian's gesturing to his studio he built down the bottom of his garden, which is obviously quite a big investment.
Yeah. So this was like, I suppose I could have worked in the other place, but just very small. And this is definitely a time thing, because I have over to one side, I have like an overhead rig already set up, ready to go. The background's all there, the two stands are there, it's the height I need it to be. I could just chuck my camera on there, film it, and it's ready to go. I've got my lights that didn't actually fit in there set up for this podcast, so that's all set up. Or if I'm doing a video, the microphone's already here. And then, all my other bits and bobs that were usually in drawers or in scattered around everywhere. Yeah, definitely. And also the opportunity of a chalk wall, which was not possible in my previous place.
Do you find you're much more productive?
See,
Well, it saves you time, setup time.
There's the setup time. It does save me, though. Ideas are not something you can buy. So if the ideas are not there, then my productive doesn't. Now, yes, it's a bit more productive in terms of it helps me to switch off. Even though, the other place was was just an extension of the house. This is down the end of the garden, so there's a bit more of there's like a 10-meter commute. But I'm able to switch off more, which is more healthy.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the space given, it freed up more time to procrastinate on other things.
Honest, that's what the show's all about.
I'm just thinking, why is it I spend, because you can get the Adobe Suite, the whole Adobe Suite on a PC. Why isn't it that I spend money on a decent PC that's a lot less money? Like, Lisa, why did you have to buy a Mac? Is a PC cheaper out in...
I get nothing.
It would be cheaper, but I can tell you now, I think I might die from frustration learning how to use a PC because I've only ever had a Mac since, so I've been using Macs for 20 odd years, so to have to make that change, I might croak. I don't know.
We have this internal debate in our office because our creative director Matt loves PCs and hates Macs.
Really?
And I legitimately get 10 times more done on a Mac than a PC, and I'm 10 times happier and less frustrated. I use a PC for 5 minutes and I want to throw it out the window like a frisbee.
Me too.
It is horrible for me to use. Yes. I'm glad it's not just me.
Yeah.
See, I'm sort of middle of the road. I've got all Macs. I have got Surface as well. Yeah, the operating system has never been, and they're trying to make it easier to use, but it's still quite complicated. But underneath it, there's still similar. If you're using Photoshop, it's basically the same. But I suppose it's worth, if you're, because like the Mac, if you wanted to get if you were doing video editing, actually the PCs are half the price of like a high-end Mac.
Oh, and the rest, mate. So this was one of my biggest investments. I think I spent $2,000 on this when I got it. And this was at the start of Design Cuts, so it was a big investment. I didn't have that much money to my name, but I just thought if I'm going to give this company a proper go, it let me work 3 times faster than my previous Mac, which at that point was like a decade old and super slow. And that was the best investment I've made. And to this day, it's like 6 years old now, and it still runs really quick and lets me get all my work done. But I toyed with the idea of getting a fresher model the other day, and I plugged in all what I wanted and the hard drive and all the spec, and it spat out this number, and it was $6,000. And I just thought, oh, ouch. So it's more than double a PC, I think, Ian. It's got to the point, like the best Macs are, 4 or 5 times what a PC seems to be.
Yeah.
And for someone who's, I don't know what the average wage is, that's a lot of money to recoup and to get back. And so you have to really think about how you could offset that if you have to get one. Because I know that people are bought into the ecosystem of Apple, so they've got the iPhone and they've got the Mac and they've got the iPad. They like being able to go from one to the other.
Yes.
But then that becomes a big cost because every upgrade is an expensive upgrade.
Yeah.
And so, like for me, I don't like spending too much on a mobile phone. And so I normally get mine secondhand, or if they're on a deal, because they're just, because I use it. I'm not really fussed because I use a Google Pixel. So, it's, I like spending stuff that's going to help my business. The mobile, even though I do a lot of my work on it, I don't feel I need to spend like, because some of the phones are getting a ridiculous price of like £1,200, £1,400.
Yeah.
It's just a ridiculous amount. And, you know, whereas I don't mind spending it on the iPad because that is something that actually generates an income. I like to see like the tech, because tech will run out. Oh no, it gets superseded. So you have to try and get like your money's worth.
It's like when you buy a car and you
Yeah.
drive it off the forecourt and it halves in value, as people say.
Yeah.
Same thing
Yeah.
with tech. It's a depreciating asset.
Yeah. Well, you see, Ian, that's the point. You've already identified that you don't need a Apple phone, so you could get by with just using any old phone. And to be honest, I'd probably also be happy with that. But okay, I have to be honest that I'd probably just get the Apple phone out of habit. I could probably do without it, but I couldn't live without my Mac or my iPad. So yeah, I don't know.
Apple fangirl.
I know.
I'm the same.
You know what it is? It's so part of me, and that's probably what they're relying on.
Mhm.
Because I couldn't possibly imagine changing, stuff to some other platform. And
Interesting story,
Anyway,
actually. Lisa and I met in a tent outside the front of an Apple store 4 days before they opened for the latest. Like, that's a lie, but I'd love it if that was true.
oh no, yeah, it's weird. But you know what? The important thing to remember as well is that, besides the fact that it's going to make your life easier in choosing the correct equipment, you also need to. It's a good opportunity for you to then say to yourself and start thinking about billing correctly and say, right, I've got all this expensive equipment plus my talents and my skills and my time that I'm going to spend on a job. I shouldn't be charging X. I should now be charging this. And I mean, I know a lot of photographers that I worked with when I was art director on magazines. They would literally bill for their time plus the equipment that they were using in that shoot, because they often had to either hire it or they invested all that money in, all this amazing lighting, etc. So
I don't know why that feels more realistic if you're in videography or something. That feels like part and
Sure.
parcel. Imagine, I can already hear some of the listeners as a freelance designer who's, not totally made it. They're not fully certain of themselves yet. And the client pushes back and they're like, well, you're too expensive. How do you justify that cost? And it's like, have you seen my laptop over there? Because it is brilliant.
I mean, obviously that would be a weird thing to suggest to a client, the reason why you're charging so much. But what I'm saying is we're often guilty of not charging what we should, because we have invested in our business, and that business includes our equipment,
Yeah,
and
just
we
say,
forget that.
if they put, I'm not made of iPhones, mate. So you've got to cough up.
Yeah. It's
No, I appreciate what you're saying, and that
Yeah.
is, as you say, that's very standard. My brother's a videographer. They're certainly doing that, whether they have had to buy equipment outright or they're renting it for a shoot. They absolutely factor that in the cost, and that would be no surprise to the client.
Yeah.
It seems weird
Yeah,
though
no,
to
and-
factor in, part of the MacBook or part of the iPad as part of the.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more what I'm suggesting. It's more a case of you got to take, when somebody you got to take your business seriously, and your business includes the equipment that you've invested in, and that it includes the rent that you're paying if you're paying for office rent space. I mean, all those kinds of things. When you go to a big corporate for a, I don't know, brand identity, the reason why their quote is like, I don't know, $800 an hour versus your $50 an hour is because they have to pay staff, they've got to pay a receptionist who took your call, they got to pay for the rent. That's why they're charging so much. And I think we forget that it's not only, you got to think about all these things. And of course, it's tax deductible. It should be. I mean, I'm sure it is in your country, in America. Yeah. So I mean, those are also things that you have to consider. That it's take it seriously, because it is your business and you can claim for it, and you should charge accordingly.
Jeff, have you missed out on any opportunities because you didn't have any of the right equipment?
Gosh,
Well, no, because she's got half an Apple shop in her home studio. So.
You joke. I think I've got about 3. I've got a graveyard. That's not good. No, I don't think I have, actually.
Okay, I've got an example, and it might
Yeah.
not have been missed opportunities, but I think I've held myself back. and it was not investing in premium resources, which I mentioned before this call. Is quite ironic because now that's what our company does, is we sell amazing digital resources, including your guys's. But for years, when I was like a broke student who was freelancing, and even when I started getting a bit more traction, I flat out refused to invest. And if I did, it was painful, because this was back in the day where I think I spent $400 or $500 on a font family and that kind of thing. And I really didn't have the money at the time. So it was a hard decision. And I remember for so long going to all these like free brush websites and free texture websites. And there was so many hours wasted just trawling them. And I'm sure you guys have done that too. It's a pretty painful experience because they're freebie sites for a reason. So what happens is you go through, half the links are broken when you go to download them, and they're pushing you to another site. You're getting 8 million pop-ups in your face. You get the brushes and it turns out they're crap. And it's really like an unbearable thing. And now, like, I obviously eventually made the switch to using premium stuff, and it was game changing. The quality of my work went through the roof. I was way less stressed. I felt like I had this kind of toolkit, this arsenal at my disposal. And it just made me a better designer
and faster.
And yeah, faster, like all of that. So much less frustration and wasted hours. So I'm a huge proponent of that now. And it got so ridiculous that all my client, because I was a web designer, as you guys know, all my client websites would use the same font family because I couldn't afford to go and get other good ones, which was not a good fit. So it wouldn't matter if they were like, you know, a base teacher or a personal trainer or a corporate or an accountant. They all had the same font family. And I think what happened was I didn't have all the weights. So it was a nice looking site, apart from the fact that the headings weren't bold when they were meant to be, because they were all like regular weight or something like that, because I couldn't afford all the and it was just ludicrous looking back, and I should have invested more up front. And the reason this is front of mind is this week I needed some brushes, and I was in a bit of a rush. And you would think, obviously, you know, I've got access to all kinds of great brushes, you know, we sell so many of them, but I wasn't logged in. And I couldn't be bothered to go in and, you know, give to one to myself and faff around in WordPress and do all that side of things. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to grab a free brush set because it's, you know, quite simple what I need. It was just a watercolor brush. So I went on Google, went through about 8 different search results, each of which led to an article listing about 40. All the links kept breaking. Downloaded 3. The quality was horrible.
They were all junk.
They were all junk. And it was the most frustrating thing. It was like flashing back in time. And I just thought, oh man, this used to be my life. I just hours on every client project sifting through all this rubbish and pulling my hair out. And I just thought, this is god awful. And for what? You know, brush sets out there are like $10, $15. It's ludicrous. Like when that comes down to hourly rate, especially my hourly rate now, as you know, like CEO and stuff, is bigger than when I was a freelance designer. But even as a freelance, like even as a freelance designer, it's like, you know, it's about 10 minutes worth of your hourly rate. If you go and spend this brush set, I would happily sit there for 2-3 hours of unbearable torture trying to find the perfect one.
Oh,
it's true.
We've all been there.
It's terrible though, right?
It is terrible. And I remember like when I first started out as a freelancer, and clients would, you know, expect you to throw in a photograph of, I don't know, a happy person holding a glass of orange juice or whatever. And it just, for some reason, it just hadn't occurred to me to say to them at the time, well, that would require us to buy a stock image and it's going to cost you X. And I would just literally go, oh, sure, but, you know, the clients asked me to do this, and now where am I going to get this image from? I'd spend hours searching the internet for
were you there with
image.
Cliff
like,
with a pint of Tropicana on board?
Oh, my word, you joke. I've actually done that. I've set up some of the like pictures myself.
That's so funny.
But it took me a couple of years, like when I was fresh and green, to actually realize, hang on a minute, that's like part of the brief, and that's when you push back and you go, okay, that's cool. Stock photograph is going to cost you X. And yeah, since then, obviously, when I caught on that there was a whole another way to do it, it's changed my life. But it's difficult. You don't realize it, that you can actually ask clients to pay for the stuff that they need for their job.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite acceptable, and I think we forget that.
Oh, here's a business idea, because I see this with our creative director all the time. Even when you go premium and get the best stuff, it can still take hours. I've seen him and our team spend like a day or two finding the perfect image. So if you're more junior but you've got a great eye, make that a service and be like,
trawling through like Shutterstock and be like, I'm going to do all the legwork of finding you
that's
a
really
perfect
good
set of images.
idea, Tom.
Because creative directors don't want to do that.
Take note.
like a scout for a football team goes around all the different matches looking for talent.
Yeah, exactly. Be like, you don't want to do this horrible job, but I don't mind it.
Yeah, that's it. You give them like there's certain requirements. Look at show them part of the brief. Yeah, definitely.
There you go, listeners.
Tom will give you a job.
So what else have been good investments?
I think I missed out. I've only recently got a laptop. And I had my iMac, which I had for ages. And I think I definitely missed out when I first went freelance, of missing out on going into companies and temping, sort of like a design temp, because some of them, it would required like you to come in and just work, or, with your laptop, because you've got all your stuff that you know how to use and it's all set up ready. And I didn't have that, so I wasn't able to just sort of to be like a mobile designer. And
did you lose out? Did you actually have to say no?
Yeah, because I just and not be able to offer that, because I wasn't. Yeah, I couldn't just like, I'll come in. Because when I did, a company did bring me on, and it was really hard because I was like, you don't know the way around the computer where everything is and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
so true.
And so, yeah, and the reason why I've got one now is because when I'm traveling, I do a lot of work, and when it's going to London, I can work either end of or the train journey, and if it's just a meeting there, then I find a coffee shop and working there. And it has, it's an investment in a laptop or a Mac laptop is quite a bit of money, and so you have to think how will that be spent. And actually, I bought it because I was going out to film some stuff, and I was going to be out of the country for like a week, and so being away from your computer for a week is quite a lot of hours of work. So if you've got nowhere to work, that's quite a lot of wasted time. So I had to okay, I'm not expecting to earn back the whole of the money in that week. That would be great to earn that money. But even if it was just quarter of it, it would have started to pay for itself. So that was one that, even just working at the airport when you have to be there like 3-4 hours earlier, that's 4 hours either ends of the journey is, a whole day's work that you're sort of missing out on. So mine was like, I use it a lot more now, but it was very intermittent, but it was worth it in terms of missed out time when I was traveling. So
yeah, and a good way because Cliff kind of actually makes me think of things this way, is that you kind of figure out like, how long do you think you're going to have this piece of equipment? So say you pull out a number, it's 5 years and it costs X. You do like 5 years divided by how much you paid for it. So what does that equate to per month? And that gives you a more understandable figure that you can deal with, whether, okay, hang on, am I really going to get, I don't know, $200 worth of this equipment per month, or, whatever it is. So it kind of puts things into perspective, and it also makes you quickly realize,
I mean,
okay, it's not a far-fetched thing. I can actually, get my money's worth kind of thing, or not.
I've just done this, with the laptop that I'm using to record this right now, which, like I said, I've
yeah.
had for 2 years. It's 2 years. I've had for 6 years, and I spent £2,000 on it. That works out at just under £28 a month,
It's for nothing.
right?
I mean,
And it literally like doubled my productivity.
and it's like it's your job. It's your
It's-
business.
It sounds like a
Like,
really cheap car if you're like a taxi driver or
yes.
if you're like working for Uber. Imagine how much investment you have to put into your own car, and that's a lot more money and a lot worse hourly rate than you get as a designer. So
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true. But there is one piece of equipment that I bought that was very expensive. Well, I thought it was expensive, that I've used 10 times and I still can't get the hang of it, and I really dislike. And that's I've already forgotten what you call those things. Those you use it, Ian. It's those track pads.
the they're called
Tablet.
like tablet, aren't they? Like a Wacom tablet.
Yes, Wacom. So I bought a Wacom, and it's I hate it.
This
And I
podcast
spent-
also not sponsored by Wacom.
There are other brands available.
No, but I can't get used to the. It's just a weird thing for me.
Is it one with the screen on it? Is there one that you have to look at the screen?
No.
See that?
Yeah.
I don't get. The only reason I've got one is because I get RSI, in my wrist from using a mouse. So
Yeah,
I
me
need
too.
so I have to use that because it puts my hand at a different angle. It's because it's when my hand is my wrist is flat against the desk, it really starts hurting, and the angle your hand goes. Whereas when it's just a writing, isn't it? When you're using it as a mouse, it's a bit like writing, and that's more comfortable
Yes.
for me. So, yes, that has been like the most expensive mouse I've ever bought because it's like 4 times the price.
Not one with the little ball in it, then.
Oh no! I could never get on with it.
You had to take it out and dust it. You remember that?
I mean, how long did it take you to get used to it? Because I've tried.
I only use it, I don't draw with it because I find that really hard because you're looking at the screen and drawing on the tablet. That doesn't work for me. I literally just use it as a mouse, and I find I'm quicker on that than I am the mouse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you could with a mouse you're limited by how quickly you move it across the table. Whereas that it's just lifting. You can go, oh, you're in that corner.
Yeah.
So that has definitely, and because I don't use it as its proper form, it's lasted a lot longer than it probably would.
Yes, then it would. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, I don't know. No, that was a waste of money. I literally I threw money down the loo there. I thought it was going to change
You
my
could sell it
whole-
already.
Yeah, I
Or
could,
use it
and
as
I
like
will.
paperweight or something.
Well, you know what? I'm really terrible because what happens is now I've got that thing hanging over my head, and I think I really should try and get used to it. I really should use it. So I wait and I try and I wait, and before you know it, it's 6 years old, and then I'll get $50 for it. Oh goodness. Anyway,
You live
yeah.
and learn.
So then-
Something that like I'm investing in at the moment is like a projector because I'm doing a lot more mural work.
Oh, I had a projector to give you.
Oh, it costs like 10 grand to get it shipped over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
you
probably
won't get
probably
it
would
Yeah.
make it, yeah.
But that's for me. That's an investment of sort of like £600-700. So it would like probably even out with the amount of work I've done so far with it paying it off. But in terms of like it's quicker to get the thing up. There's another time thing, so it's quicker for me to project it than to get loads of sheets of paper, make loads of holes, pack it on there.
Oh.
It's not, and so that's, I'm just in the process of doing that. But I also think, well, how else can I use this to make money? Because obviously it has its main use of that projecting. But another thing is like doing a review on YouTube. So I can use it in that as well. I can produce, do a video of like, this is a review of this projector, which you can use projecting your mural work or for the chalkboard behind me, or it could be like
Fun
for
the kids.
Oh, sorry,
Fun for the kids.
fun for yeah, well, I
somehow.
love that. Or for like doing workshops as well. If you're doing a bit of overhead work in your
Oh, true.
and so it's
Mm.
thinking, okay, I'm going to make this investment, which is going to hurt my income, but how, just don't think linear. Think, okay, what's the multiple things that can be done with this one piece of equipment that can make it earn itself? I think that's what I try, and that's what definitely happened with the iPad, because I wasn't buying it thinking, oh, well, that's going to be my business in like 2-3 years time and it's going to give me all these opportunities. It was like I had an inkling, is lettering going this way? Maybe, because when I first had a go on the iPad, I really didn't get on with it. I remember having a go on someone's.
Ian, what you're talking about is basically investing. So I tend to view investing as an upfront cost and investment of money with no necessary guarantee of return, just a hope of a return. So you're putting in upfront money with a degree of risk with a hope that you're going to see a profitable return on that. And that's all we can do. And we're doing this right now with looking at a new hire. And we're literally having to run the numbers. And even then, it's just going to be an educated guess. So we're looking at potentially hiring a designer. And it's like, okay, so if we rejig things around this way and they could potentially do this and this for us, and they could save us a bit of money here and make us a bit of money there. And you have to like try and make that educated decision of, we're going to make an investment in this person. Are we going to see a return on that, or are we going to see a loss?
Yeah, scary stuff.
So same thing with your equipment.
Yeah.
I suppose you've got the safety net, because, there's, when you're investing, there's like high risk stuff. And then there's low risk stuff. And I suppose the more you can see how it can be used within your business, it reduces the risk of you just spending that money and not getting anything in return. And I suppose that's what I try and do. Like when I bought a new camera because got some sponsorship on my YouTube. And so I'm finally able to upgrade my camera. And so I thought, okay, what do I need it for, and what can I use it for other than just making YouTube videos? And I was like, well, I can make the videos for Instagram as well, and I can do it for maybe a class as well, and it on my product, doing like photographing my work as well and stuff like that. So I was trying to think, okay, I'm making this investment, but what else can I use it for in terms?
Yeah. Here's an idea. So I think it is smart the way some people put aside savings, either for a rainy day, but in many cases for investment. And most people might do that in the stock market or something like that. But if you run your own creative business or you're a freelancer, you can do that yourself. So instead of what I tend to do, where it's like do a big upfront investment, wait half a decade, and then have to do it all over again, you can do it in a more ongoing capacity. So imagine if every client that you got, you put aside 10%, which you were gonna, or maybe 10% went in savings for a rainy day, but another 10% went into reinvesting that into your business. And I think Sean Wes actually talked about this at length a few years ago. But when you do it consistently, it can really compound. So imagine if 10% of what we all made, we put into better equipment, hiring out people, whatever it might be, just over and over and over again. The production value of what you do for one thing skyrockets. And I think that's what Sean was talking about, where it would be like, okay, I'm going to get a slightly better set of lights. I'm going to get a better lens for my camera, and on and on and on. And when you do that over and over again for a period of years, the leap forward is astronomical. And I think that's a little bit more proactive and aggressive, right? It's not that you absolutely need this stuff. It's that you just want to be better and better. And we're looking at doing this right now. So we are looking at getting higher production value. To be honest, this is after I went on The Future and I was like, God, that looks a lot better than what we've got. But, I would love us to all get better and better microphones for this show. So the audio quality is better for people. Is that going to make or break the podcast? Probably not. But it will make a difference over time, I think. And, can we find ways to get like nicer backdrops for the videos and build a little set out? Can we get nicer lighting? Can we mix it up and do stuff like invest in a platform to broadcast live, we've talked about for this podcast? And maybe that's a little monthly cost or something. And all these things, you know what I mean? When you layer them on top of each other, it can be day or night, the before and after, with how much better it becomes.
Yeah. And especially if you're doing it in small increments and not just this, I think that's the whole point of what you were saying. Like, you've got to see it as an investment over time, and you can't just, you know, I actually made that mistake when Adobe was still selling, you know, software and not through subscription. And I mean, I resisted updates, I think the 1 year for about 3-4 years. And
Yeah.
then when I had to update, it was astronomical, you know? And I think that's the thing. Instead of me actually taking advantage of the specials that they run for people who have already bought it, you know, he has an update special. And I think that's shooting yourself in the foot. That's not a very smart business financial move.
It's
And
human
I think
nature.
it is human nature, and I think it's because, going back to that whole thing, for me, it's because and what you were saying, Ian, it's coming out of your own. It feels like it's coming out of your own personal pocket, and it's not something that's tangible.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about that shift from like CS5 to CC? Because that was huge for me. Because I was like, I don't want to pay every month. Yeah, it was like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to get the new package or whatever. So same as you. I was years out of date, and then you're like, oh,
Yes.
you mean instead of like cloning for 30 minutes, I can use Content Aware Fill and stuff like that when it started coming up.
Yeah, that was the other thing as well.
I think there's something psychological about a subscription versus just buying it outright. It's like a lot of apps that I'm quite happy to pay, like, you know, £20-30 for individual ones. Like, I have cleaning ones on here that helps to clear out the memory and clear away, you know, junk files and stuff like that. But now they've moved to a subscription model, and there's just something about having too many subscriptions.
Oh,
yes.
We did an audit recently. I'm not even going to tell you the number because we cut a bunch out we weren't even using anymore. It was quite a big number every single month, and it just thought, what a waste. And that is what happens if you just willy-nilly go too aggressive.
Just say yes.
And you're like, this will save me time. This looks new and shiny. And you end up with bloat, like app bloat. And it's a real cost. But equally, if you pay attention to that and audit what you're actually using and cut out the ones you're not, you can then reallocate that saved money into stuff that is going to get used and is going to push your career forward.
One thing I invested in the other day, or no, it's like half a year ago now, was my Gmail was constantly like, you're full up. I was like, okay, I could either spend, I think it's like £2 or £3 per month to get, like, I don't know, it's like a terabyte of space, or try and clear my inbox. And it came to a point where I was like, it's just not working, me clearing my inbox. So, you know, I invested in that thing, and I suppose
that's what they're relying on.
That is what they're relying on, and I'm a perfect customer for that.
And same thing with Dropbox, right?
Yeah.
I did that for a while, where I kept like deleting and tidying up Dropbox, and then it's like, just pay the £10 a month.
Yeah, so all these subscriptions can actually end up being quite expensive.
Yeah, and I think it's that's another thing you have to weigh up. Is like, for me, like, Dropbox has been really worth the money, and I'm still on the £10 per month plan, but it means that I prefer it to iCloud, and, you know, I use it daily to, like, you know, I might edit a video on the Mac and then I just upload it and then I download it on my phone, and you know, or I've got stuff that's like, you know, I'm replying to a customer email and they haven't got a link to the download of one of the products, so I can just quickly copy a link from there and send it to them, and and that's just been really good. In terms of how, and you just have to look at things and see, and sometimes you don't know whether, you know, with like an investment, you don't know whether it's going to pay off, and it's hard, and sometimes you just have to take the leap and see whether it will be, and you know, like Lisa's Wacom tablet, and yeah, there is times where you just, like, you know, you don't get it right and it doesn't pay off. I've got so much equipment that's just sort of sitting around. Like, I bought a whole like studio lighting set, thinking that when I got in here I'd be able to use it, and it's still too big for in here. It's like a photography set, and
no.
everything's
Oh, mate, honestly, we'll buy that off you for the right price.
okay.
If you're looking to shift it.
Hook it out. But the thing is, it's like what also happens is you buy something and you think, oh, it doesn't fit here now. I will use it in a few years' time, and then technology supersedes it, like flat panel LED lights that take up hardly any room and are brighter. And I'm like, oh no,
That is so annoying.
yeah, I've
Oh.
invested this money and it's not actually been a good investment. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to think, okay, that was a mistake.
Yeah. And then sometimes you end up investing, like it's not even a big investment. It ends up being your whole life. Like Procreate, I think is so cheap, and it's like
That has
it's
been like
everything.
that has been one of those investment. You've laid a little nugget of gold.
Exactly.
It's
And
worth
it's just
quite-
unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just weird. You win some and you lose some, and it's the way it goes, I guess.
Sounds like a song lyric. I like it.
You win some, you lose some.
Oh, that's the way it goes.
That's the way it goes, I guess.
No, it's so true. And Procreate's a perfect example of that, I
Yeah.
think.
But then you have to have the
Hell of a
iPad
tool.
to go with it, which is the thing that costs some money.
Yeah, that's the kicker.
Yeah, that's true. Oh,
They should be on commission from Apple. I
They
bet so
should.
many people have got iPads just to be able to use their amazing app.
And I get a lot of people asking me, which one shall I get? Because they've now made it compatible with like the normal iPad you can use the Apple Pencil with. So you have the normal iPad and the Pro versions. Then you get obviously different sizes, different generations, and they range from £600 to way over £2,000. And I get a lot of people saying, what do I invest in? And the thing is, there might be two people and they have completely different aspects of what they're going to be using them for. So if you're making this part of your business, then spending, getting the bigger screen, which saves you time in terms of like just zooming in will save you a lot of time. Is it going to, can you invest that in? Because like, it might be the case that if you want to invest more into something you're going to use like an iPad, spend less on an iPhone. So keep the one that's like outdated a year later and use that money to invest in a better iPad, because you want to think, okay, if it's just for fun, then you're limited by what you can buy. But if you're thinking, actually, I'm not earning money for it now, but I want it to, then I normally say, go for the bigger size if you can, because it will help you in the long run. And
sorry, can I ask you that? Stop you there. Does it really? I'm interested to know, because I've got a small one, 9.7 inch one, and
I'm
can't-
glad that's you saying that, not Ian.
and I can't actually see why a bigger one would benefit me, but Tom, come on now.
Sorry.
This is no good. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm just interested to know why you would think that.
Well, it's the same reason that I got like the 27-inch iMac over the 21, 22-inch iMac, because you have more real estate, which means you can, if you're trying to like, if I'm trying to edit a video on an iMac compared to on a MacBook, I can't have all the tools up. So
That's
Kind
true.
of multiple windows.
windows up.
Yeah.
You can't like, if you're having like split screen on the iMac where you have like maybe Pinterest up one side covering like a third of it, and then you've got where you're drawing. I find it quite small anyway on my one, let alone on the slightly smaller version of it.
Really?
And so
Okay.
what it gives you is, obviously like zooming in. For me, I like the fact it's the same size as in the UK. It's an A4 bit of paper or letter in, US letter size. And so I'm used to that size of drawing. I normally have a bit of paper
Yes.
or a notebook, and it's the same size. And so it means that I have access to a lot more area.
A
and
larger
and then that
area,
helps me.
Okay.
But yeah, you're paying a premium for that. So I would recommend
Yeah.
someone getting the bigger size, but an older version over a brand new one, which is smaller, if you get what
Which
I
is
mean.
a
Yeah,
smaller
yeah.
version. Yeah, okay.
That makes
yeah.
sense.
Because Procreate just doesn't really, I don't find it actually uses that much memory.
No.
And yeah, so but I can see why you don't know why it would make a difference, but for me, it does make a difference. And even down to like the new way of charging the pencil means that I'm never stuck with an uncharged pencil, which I was before.
Oh, it's so frustrating.
So that's another time thing. You have to think because like I said it when I was doing my review of it, is if that is quite a big thing to you, then you will make that money back because of the time it saves you and the frustration.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's making a list of everything, the pros and cons, the investments and the what you call a thing when you get back your investments, the return. Yeah. That's it.
Return. Yeah.
And I think that's really important to do. Like Tom saying, audit and see whether things that you're paying out for are actually you're getting a return on. It might be the case you've got a lot of apps. It's like Netflix. If you're paying for that money every month, but you're only watching it a couple of times, is it really worth it? And the same with like Spotify or Apple Music and all these things. They're only small payments, aren't they? They're like, I know $10. But if you've got like,
I'll give you another example. When I find some time, I don't know when that's going to happen, but I'm going to redesign my personal website. And right now I'm using Squarespace, and that's like £24-25 a month. And I'm not a coder, so I'm going to design up a super simple site and like get, PSD to html.com or someone like that just to whip it together, because I can't afford to go and get a full developer to do that. And that'll probably be a few hundred. So it might be a year, 18 months, 2 years until I actually end up making money on that. But through that upfront cost, I'm not going to have an outgoing to Squarespace every single month, which annoys me.
Yeah. I mean, I had that same debate when I first started my website. Like, do I pay, a platform like that, or do I actually go my own route? And I decided to go my own route, and I'm so happy I did, because I think I'd be incredibly irked if I had to fork out money every month for something that wasn't even entirely how I wanted it to look.
That's it, yeah. And get the customization.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you guys. Good, well-rounded chat, I think. You're keeping me sane, but I am going to go and bathe myself in Lemsip and tea. Drain. It's hard being a man in these scenarios, like you say, Lisa. But no, thank you everyone for tuning in. Next time we should have Dustin back.
Yeah,
he's away right now, isn't he? I think he's back.
I think so, yeah.
Next time we record. Perfect. So we will have the lovely Mr. Lee back. But yeah, I hope this was helpful. And if you are being completely tight-fisted and you've never invested in anything and you've got the jankiest, most horrible setup in the world full of freebies and terrible tools, then it might be that you're due an upgrade.
Yeah.
So food for
thought.
Do
DM us if you've got any questions about, about equipment that we use. Yeah, it's sometimes, and it's also good to ask advice from other people, because there's been times when I have asked advice and people are like, "Oh no, you don't want to go that route."
Yeah,
and I suppose and that's where it's really helpful to get wisdom of those who have been around 100% and wasted their money.
I would say absolutely message Ian and Lisa if it's more on the equipment side of things. If you are on the fence about hiring people. And investing the money there to save time,
Tom's your man.
Come and talk to me because I like that stuff. But yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. As always, we appreciate you guys.
Thank
you
you.
are the best freaking listeners of any podcast out there.
Really are.
You really, really are. So keep being awesome. We'll see you next time. That's it from us. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com or find us over on iTunes and now Spotify by searching for The Honest Designers Show. And remember, we're now on social media too, if you search for Honest Designers. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the world to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.